A very good evening, and thanks for clicking on to the Tuesday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Hope everybody is well. If you haven't already done so, be sure to subscribe to the channel. In the next couple of days, I'm going to be talking about the winter upcoming 2023-24 thoughts update number 1 on YouTube right here. So we are going to be looking at some of the key drivers that we look at for each individual winter. There is a lot of things to still happen. There is a lot of uncertainty at this far range out. So I will be talking about this in a little bit more detail in the next day or so. I'm going to try hopefully and do that tomorrow. But we'll be looking at, this is the key elements that we're looking at: El Nino, the Indian Ocean Dipole, quasi-biennial oscillation, the solar cycle, Atlantic sea surface temperature profile, the summer just gone, type of pattern we've had. It's been a very negative NAO summer. It looks as if it's been the most negative NAO summer since 2009. There may be some very interesting correlations between that and some of the long-range models. We'll look at that as well, some of the long-range output for the December through February period coming up. And indeed, the autumn pattern, generally speaking. So do we see a very warm September? Sometimes that leads to more of a warmer winter following. And also, do we see heavy rainfall during the second half of autumn? Sometimes that can lead to an interesting cold spell during particularly the early portion of the winter if we get a lot of rain in times such as November. So stay tuned for that. A lot of exciting stuff to come in the next day or so here on marfoganweather.com. So like I said already, if you haven't already done so, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're interested in winter conditions. What an incredible pattern we have seen in the last wee while or so here. This is a tweet by our good friend Aidan McGivern of the Met Office showing the first 11-day temperature anomaly for the British Isles here. So this tweet says that the accumulated mean temperature for September 2023 so far, this graph shows that the first 11 days of September have been 2 Celsius higher than the previous hottest first 11 days, and that is the red line here representing the previous record for hottest first 11 days on record for the British Isles here. Whatever your stance is on climate change, there is no getting away from the fact that this has been a really extreme start to the month of September. You can't deny that. No matter what side of the fence that you sit on, there is no denying the type of situation that we've had. So while we've had extreme warmth across the UK and indeed Ireland, temperatures this morning, by the way, down to frost level in a few Highland glens. We may get down colder tonight. Clear skies, light winds, and a relatively fresh air mass in place means that we could have a distinctly chilly night to come. Stark contrast to here a few days ago where I recorded 28 Celsius here. The situation in Libya is just unbelievable, by the way. Storm Daniel has delivered a double catastrophic flood situation. First of all, in Greece, where we've seen the record, 700 plus millimeters of rainfall within a 24-hour period. Then that system spun south of Greece, re-energized with the warm waters of the central Mediterranean basin, and then it drifted down onto the shores of Libya, and we've seen within a 6-hour period a 414.1 millimeter rain event in Al Baida, and it looks as if there's at least 2,000 people have lost their lives due to this catastrophic 2-dam collapse in one particular village in Libya. And it is the scenes of utter devastation. There's no question about that. Also, major sandstorm further east of that circulation coming up through Egypt, eastern Libya, and out over the Mediterranean Sea in a consequence. But look at this here scene from Derna, and it's just unbelievable scenes of sheer devastation with this situation. They say that there could be as much as 10,000 people may have lost their lives. Now, this could be up there with one of the most devastating Mediterranean, Medicaid cyclone events in recorded history. The devastation that was brought in Greece, and then it moved on to the African side of the Mediterranean, and potentially has killed at least 2,000 bodies have been recovered so far, and upwards of 9 and 10,000 people remain unaccounted for. So our hearts go out to these people in Libya, where the scenes are, quite literally catastrophic. I always try to provide balance and try my best not to overhype things on this channel. I try to provide a space where it's an unbiased reality, showing you exactly what's taking place without there being this hype, without there being this push towards a particular agenda. But you can see here this satellite loop here showing that system then moving onto the North African side of the Mediterranean basin and producing just sheer devastating consequences here. And of course, we've just had 7 straight days of 30 Celsius in the UK. That is the first time in recorded history that we've seen this. Some tremendous thunderstorm activity in the last 24 hours as well. Ulster and Cumbria, by the way, had a 6-hour rain total of 78.3 millimeters of rain here. So some very, very significant thunderstorms that have been moving kind of generally from a southwest to northeast direction in recent times here. And you can see here, some of the information. I'm going to be collating this actually on the website, some of the data that we're seeing here. 2000, it looks as if the CET, by the way, has been the warmest ever recorded for the early portion of September. According to Dan Harris of the Met Office, 2023 joins an exclusive club of years where the UK monthly temperature maximum for both June and September was higher than both July and August. The last time this occurred was 1940 and has only occurred 6 other times since the mid-1850s here. So June and September being hotter in terms of the UK maximum than any day in July and August here. You have to go back to 1940 for that to happen here. And we've had some significant rain totals in recent days as well. This was the scene from Gateshead from possibly yesterday, I think, or the day before maybe. Water running down the streets here. Some pretty remarkable scenes indeed. Now the NAO is going negative here, and like I touched on at the start of the video, we've had a firmly negative NAO summer, and we're going to look in greater detail with regards to the Atlantic sea surface temperature profile. Can we get some cooling taking place between the warmth near Greenland, the warmth near the Azores, the Canaries, and the subtropical Atlantic? If we can get a slice of colder water in between that, that can correlate to Atlantic tripole, which sometimes can increase the possibility of blocking over the North Atlantic and Greenland during the winter season. And sometimes the type of pattern that we've seen during the summer season can then repeat itself later down the road. And that's another thing that we're going to look at in great detail coming up here. But it's interesting how the NAO is going back negative once again, likely a direct consequence of Lee, which is a major hurricane, sustained winds of 150 miles per hour. It looks as if it's heading up towards Maine and Nova Scotia. It looks as if it's going to maintain hurricane strength according to the National Hurricane Centre all the way up until early Saturday, when it's basically due east of New England here, and then it's going to make a beeline for the upper east coast of Maine, and also western Nova Scotia and New Brunswick as well. So we're going to keep our eyes close on that as we go through the next several days here on the channel. Margot looks as if it's going to continue to drift northwards here, and it's the influence that this has had, and this is something I've touched on quite a lot recently, is the fact that, of course, I believe Franklin played a significant role in delivering the heat wave through the first 10 days or so of September. Now we could have, again, northward tracking hurricanes, not one but two, that move north and then reshape the atmosphere here. What we're going to see is these two, tropical entities pumping heat out of the tropics towards the temperate region. That then buckles the jet stream and forces the strengthening of this high to the south of Greenland. But in turn, we're going to then increase the depth of the trough over the UK and Ireland here. And it looks as if we've got a significant pattern change as we go forward here. But sometimes this situation can also pump the ridge, can regenerate a more settled and warm theme through the second half of the month. I don't think that's necessarily going to take place this time around. The GFS ensemble, this is the upcoming 5-day 500 millibar geopotential height anomalies here. You can see here the ridge has weakened significantly, compared to what we've seen. It's shifted east. We've got a little bit of a window here of no man's land, but notice here as we play through this loop, we notice here the negative here coming out of the Iceland, Greenland. We've also got that negative to the west of Iberia. These two kind of join forces to deepen the negative, the trough over the northeast Atlantic, the UK, and indeed Ireland here. So that indicates to me a somewhat wetter theme here. And of course, I did say a warmer but also drier September. Will that prove to be the case? Well, only time will tell, really. You notice here that we do have that wetter theme starting to develop here. This is the upcoming 7-day period here. We've got a slice of wetter than average through the central swathe of the UK, much of Ireland, drier slightly across the north and across the south here. But as we play through the loop here, you see the increase in rainfall during the second half of the month here. So we'll keep our eyes closely fixed on that here. Temperature anomaly wise looks like this here. So the upcoming 5 days has a cooler than average northern UK and Ireland here, as you can see here, still hold on to the warmth across England and Wales. As we play through this loop here, you can see that the warmth maintains itself and then tries to spread back north as we press through the second half of the month. So despite the fact that we've got this kind of negative starting to deepen over the UK and Ireland in at least the next week or so, whether it maintains itself through the remainder of the month remains to be seen. It doesn't look as if the GFS is buying into anything particularly cold in terms of the pattern. So it's going to be interesting to see with regards to how warm this first half of September has been. How much do we see a drop-off during the second half of the month? I think it's firmly one of the top 10 warmest Septembers on record. And I think there's no getting away from that aspect here. Looking at the GFS here for Inverness, you can see here that it's predominantly below average at 850. Through the 16th, 17th of the month. Then we have a little bit of a bump back above average, and then it kind of generally holds close to average in the means right through to about the 26th, 27th of the month here. Looking at London's 850 temperature anomaly, and unfortunately the model is updating, so it's not going to show me that here. But yeah, it's an interesting second half to September, and it'll be interesting to see what influences that has on the pattern as we go through the second half of the autumn season, generally speaking here. Finally, let's have a quick look actually at the CFSV2 monthlies for the upcoming period. So this is the month of October, and you can see here quite a lot of higher pressure. Let's have a look at the UK version actually, or Europe should I say, and see what it's indicating here for the month-by-month basis. It looks as if it's indicating a bit of a Scandi block here for the month of October based on the model. Looking at November here, it looks as if it's a firmly, generally an Atlantic-driven November. We've got the ridge of high pressure promoting probably warmer and drier conditions across much of Europe. We've got that negative up towards Greenland and Iceland here. That would be generally a positive NAO signal. And then as we push towards December, again, very similar. Now, it's interesting, some of the longer range models indicate that we have an increased chance of blocking during the second half of this winter season coming up. But we have a long way off, folks. There's a lot of things to look at, the El Nino, the details, what's going to take place. Are we going to start to see cooling in the East Pacific versus the Central Pacific? Lots of things to cover. I will have a look at that in detail either tomorrow, if not the following day, right here on the channel with the winter thoughts update number 1. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. See you again tomorrow with more.